people may want to use, it is, as Jane said, it's going to be hard to force people to do this. But I think, everybody looks at it as sort of being imposed upon you. And I think institutions, well, they prescribe their culture, don't they? So they're going to decide what you can and can't do. And that's just going to be one of the criteria of sort of attending a particular university. And they've decided, obviously, that it's important enough to do this. So, and the thing is, it is going to be a bit blunt. It's a blunt tool to sort of, I guess, get people to acknowledge that some people would not necessarily want to be addressed in a certain way.
Can you accommodate all of humankind? I mean, mistakes are made all the time, aren't they, in identification? So a person in a disabled car park is accused of not being disabled. People make these blunders, and an older mum or dad is mistaken for a grandparent and so on. So things happen all the time that we'd rather not happen.
My 37-year-old friend got ID'd at the supermarket.
What, for not being old enough to buy liquor?
Yeah, exactly. She was very happy.
Yeah, that's the one you want. All right, the next one. According to Oxford University's, the London School of Economics, the London School of Economics Students' Union is, well, it's reasonably ban happy, and in the past it's banned newspapers and certain songs, and it's banned societies on campus. And now there's a motion to ban the Free Speech Society. Which was established to fight against the banning of other societies. And this is actually, I know it sounds, like it's a joke, but there is a firm movement now that prioritises not giving offence and wants safe spaces at varsities created and so on, and prioritises all that over the right to dissent. So again, we have, how much free speech should be allowed, and should you ban the Free Speech Society?
I just always think, on the whole, better in than out. I'd rather know that people had these views than have them suppressed and then finding out later that someone I'd been dealing with had those views. So I tend to, on balance, to favour freedom of expression, provided that people who express views are, rightly subject to people saying, "I find your views offensive." But yeah. I'd rather we didn't try and hide all this hatred that there is out there, because I want to know where it is.
Yeah, there's certainly an argument for that. Or I'll give you the last one. The French town has been ordered to remove a statue of the Virgin Mary from a public park because under France's strict secular laws now, aimed at Muslims, let's be honest, displaying religious symbols in public is now banned. So they are at least applying it to everyone. But is this fair enough, or is it a bit silly?
Well, it depends. I mean, France has always, as you say, always been, separation of church and state has always been very clear. And so, if they're going to make one law for all, it has to apply to everyone. So I think if the Virgin Mary if they can put her back in the church or something like that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it depends on how long it's been there. Is it sort of like from the 15th century or something like that, and it's been part of the town's history, etc.?
No, I don't think it's that. It's not that antique.
No.
But presumably you wouldn't allow the cross to be carried down public roads at Easter time. I suppose that's the extension of that one.
Maybe not.
Don't have time to talk to you more, but what we've talked about has been very entertaining.
We've
Thank you both.
opened a minefield, haven't we?
That's right. Jane Clifton, thank you for your time on the panel today.
Pleasure.
And Catherine Robertson, always a pleasure to have you on too.
Thank you.
So we are back tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. And Checkpoint with John Campbell is on the way.
After the news. Hello everyone, I don't know what you can hear and whether you can hear me. We're going to kill that sting. I don't know what happened then. The desk just decided to erupt everything forth, and it's been that kind of tumultuous day, a changing of the guard. We are all over it. Of course, stick with us. John Key goes. Bill English arrives. We talk to Bill English about what he wants to do. Pike River take control, the families take control of the road into the mine. And we're at home with Joseph Parker's proud parents, Sala and Dempsey, and more after the news with Katrina.
Kia ora, good evening. RNZ News at 5, ko Katrina Batten tēnei. Bill English has been officially appointed Prime Minister. The short ceremony at Government House appointing Mr English and his deputy Paula Bennett took place this afternoon after John Key formally resigned. Here's our Deputy Political Editor Chris Bramwell.
Bill English was formally voted in as National Party leader this morning by MPs, along with the Deputy Leader Paula Bennett. Following John Key's announcement a week ago he was stepping down. Mr English says he wants to be a positive Prime Minister for New Zealand and says he'll likely announce his new cabinet later this week, but definitely before Christmas. He describes himself as an active Catholic and says he's proud of it. Mr English acknowledges he's very different to his predecessor Mr Key in that he's a social conservative, but says his faith does not define him. Atu i te whare pārimata ko Chris Bramwell ahau.
Mr English says he won't be meeting with Pike River families tomorrow to discuss re-entry to the mine. Some of the families of the 29 men killed in the disaster will be at Parliament to take an expert report on re-entering the mine to MPs. They're hopeful the government will hear them out now that they have legal control of part of the road leading to the mine. Mr English says while he won't have time to meet with them tomorrow, he could consider it at a later date.
I'm open to listening to the families, but not mislead anyone. It's not a political decision about whether someone goes in the mine. Look, that's not a matter I'm going to be dealing with in the next 12 or 24 hours.
Bill English says the decision to re-enter the Pike River mine is a matter of safety. Work is underway to retrieve and identify the bodies of 2 men killed when a light plane crashed near Wairoa this morning. Civil aviation investigators are on their way from Wellington to work out what caused the crash. The agricultural plane was owned by Farmers Air. About 40,000 people in the area are without power. Civil Defence has been able to provide electricity to some parts of Gisborne City down to Tolaga Bay by using generators brought in from Tauranga. The generators are being plugged into substations and will be turned on this evening so people can cook their dinner. They'll be turned off again at 8 o'clock tonight and switched on at 8 in the morning. Eastland Group is the lines company for the region. Its chief executive, Matt Todd, says the power blackout is affecting 20,000 homes and businesses. Mr Todd says the damage to 4 power cables at the crash site is significant.
4 of them to be physically broken. We're talking about an 800-metre span, so from one tower to the next tower, nearly a kilometre. It would appear the aircraft's kind of hit the line in mid-span, broken 4 of the 6 conductors and damaged the other 2. So power's gone out instantly.
Matt Todd of Eastland Group. It's hoped that State Highway 1 between Kaikoura and Christchurch will reopen before Christmas. The main southern route into Kaikoura has been closed since the major earthquake last month. The Transport Agency's Regional Performance Manager, Peter Connors, says there were 29 slips along the stretch of road and they're currently fixing number 14 just north of Oaro. Mr Connors says the work is underway to make sure the route is as safe as possible.
It's just not clearing the debris away. It's all about making these slopes stable so when we do open it, you have some certainty about the opening. So that's the trick, and it's a lot of it's weather dependent. It's also the aftershocks have an effect. But when we do open it, the last thing we want to do is we haven't stabilised the slopes and it's unreliable.
Mr Connors says it's still not clear when the highway will reopen north of Kaikoura. Bakers and other commercial operators facing costly new food safety rules are calling on the government to crack down on people selling food online. Many food outlets have less than 3 months to comply with the Food Safety Act. Sharon Brett-Kelly reports.
A growing number of businesses are making money by selling products on the internet, from cupcakes to imported goods. Commercial operators like bakers and cafe and restaurant owners say online businesses are not well controlled. Tracy Scott from Hospitality New Zealand says it is unfair that people who sell meals through online operations like Airbnb are avoiding the huge costs of food safety regulations. The Ministry for Primary Industries says its monitoring system is robust. The Ministry's Manager of Food and Beverage, Sally Johnston, says a compliance team regularly follows up complaints about internet food sales and often checks Facebook and other social media. I Tamaki Makoto ko Sharon Brett-Kelly aho.
It's 5 past 5. In sport, the former world heavyweight champion Tyson Fury has taken a swipe at New Zealand's Joseph Parker and British boxer Anthony Joshua following the two fighters' wins over the weekend. Both of Fury's former belts were up for grabs, with Parker winning the WBO title and Joshua holding on to the IBF belt. In a series of tweets following Joshua's win, Fury, who's been battling personal issues, called the new world champions a bunch of bums and said he was glad to have left the professional boxing scene. The legendary rugby sevens coach Sir Gordon Tietjens will make his coaching debut for Samoa against New Zealand at the Wellington leg of the World Series in January. Samoa has been drawn to play New Zealand in pool play at the event, which is the next tournament on the international calendar. Tietjens has watched the first two tournaments from the stands after signing with Samoa in October and will officially take over in Wellington. The All Black Sevens interim coach Scott Waldrum says that won't distract the New Zealand side, given Tietjens' recent role as an observer.
We've seen him around for 2 weeks, walking around in a Samoan t-shirt, so it won't be anything new to the boys. That'll probably be a little bit just different for him now that he's going to be on the sideline. The group's moved on pretty quickly, and we just focused on our job and creating our own legacy.
Scott Waldrum. New Zealand finished third in the Cape Town leg to improve to fifth overall in the standings behind leaders South Africa. And the Wanaka free skier Jossie Wells has finished fourth in his latest competition in the United States. That's the news.
A new era.
I've worked very closely with Bill English for the last 8 years in particular as a minister. We've just got a really good working relationship.
A new champion.
We're very happy with the outcome, and nothing can take away the fact that Joseph is now the WBO World Heavyweight Champion.
A new plea.
The gates have been erected and the 29 crosses are on the road leading up to Pike River.
Fresh ideas. Morning Report with Susie Ferguson and Guy and Espiner, weekdays from 6.
Then on 9 to noon, 10,000 people dead and many more are on the brink of starvation. But has the world turned a blind eye to the conflict in Yemen? We'll speak to Eric Junot from Médecins Sans Frontières. And after 10, architect Fred van Brandenburg, who's torn up the rulebook on classic designs. Join me, Catherine Ryan, on 9 to noon after Morning Report on RNZ National.
Met Service weather through to midnight tomorrow. In the west from Northland to Whanganui, including the central high country, isolated showers clearing in the morning, then fine with increasing high cloud. Coromandel Peninsula and Bay of Plenty, isolated showers clearing this evening, then fine. Manawatu to Wellington and Gisborne through to Wairakapa. Showers and strong southerlies spreading north this afternoon with possible thunderstorms and hail. Showers clearing by early morning, then fine with increasing high cloud. Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, scattered showers with thunderstorms possible, clearing this evening, fine tomorrow with increasing high cloud. Otago and Southland, isolated showers during the afternoons and evenings, high cloud thickening tomorrow. Bulla to Fiordland, fine apart from showers about Bulla until tonight, rain spreading from the south tomorrow. And the Chatham Islands, a few showers clearing tomorrow afternoon. It's 5:08 and you're listening to Checkpoint.
Thanks, Katrina. As you were on air, breaking news, a Dunedin council inquiry into thousands of failing power poles. Quite an extraordinary story with the power poles, and the city has recommended major changes to the lines company involved. Our reporter Ian Telfer is there. We're going to talk to him shortly. But of course, as Katrina has said, New Zealand has a new Prime Minister for the first time since November 2008. John Campbell's gone. Bill English has replaced him with the country's new Deputy Prime Minister, Paula Bennett, at his side. The National Party caucus voted for the pair this morning, but of course it was a done deal well before then after all the other contenders pulled out. Here is our Deputy Political Editor, Chris Bramwell, on an extraordinary and as recently as last Sunday, completely unexpected day.
The old cliche, a week is a long time in politics, certainly rang true today. It's hard to believe it was just 7 days ago that John Key surprised the nation by announcing his resignation. Now New Zealand has a new Prime Minister and Deputy, and tomorrow Mr Key will be flying out to Hawaii to properly relax for the first time in more than a decade. John Key had a slightly sad air to him this morning as he made his final walk to caucus as Prime Minister.
Well, it's a day full of memories, but they're happy memories for me in my time here in Parliament and as the leader. So, yeah, I mean, it's a day where, of course, you're always going to reflect on all the things that have taken place, and but no, they'll be good memories.
Here comes the new leader.
Okay, then I'm going to get out of the way.
Other National Party MPs looked pretty excited, like Mark Mitchell, who's widely tipped for promotion.
I think now that we've got a new leadership team in place, they'll make it very clear how we're going to move out for 2017. I think the important thing is that we're united and we're behind them. That's the case, and so there's actually a fair bit of excitement and new energy moving into the new year.
The incoming Finance Minister Stephen Joyce was also full of beans.
Good day, it's a good day for lots of things. It's a lovely sunny day outside, isn't it?
Do you think we're going to see some new policies?
We'll use it as an opportunity for a stock take, and we'll see how that looks in January, February.
After the caucus vote, Bill English and Paula Bennett glided into the old legislative chamber at Parliament to speak to media. This is a job Bill English has wanted for a long time, and he looked very pleased with himself as he told media he wanted to be a positive Prime Minister for New Zealand.
I think that we're a country that's matured in many ways since the very difficult period we had in the late 80s and early 90s. I've been able to watch that whole process, and I want to be a Prime Minister where New Zealanders feel that they can flourish here.
While she's clearly extremely happy with how things have turned out for her, Paula Bennett says over the last week she's been thinking a lot about her past and how she's got to where she is today.
There was, a moment when I was a 17-year-old Māori solo mum in Taupo, left school with no qualifications. I didn't have a job, and it looked pretty bleak actually, and I reckon it's a credit to this country more that there are opportunities and actually you get a second chance.
Bill English describes himself as a social conservative and an active Catholic, but says that does not define him. He's opposed to abortion and euthanasia, but has changed his tune on same-sex marriage, which he voted against.
Just seeing the impact it's had for couples, and the fact that it doesn't erode marriage in some ways, it's an affirmation of the concept.
But while it was in with the new, it was also out with the old.
And that is John Key's caucus colleagues and party members and staffers giving him the final 3 cheers as he leaves Parliament as Prime Minister for the last time. There's also a couple of protesters down there who gave a couple of boos in there for a bit of colour. But there he goes now off to Government House to resign formally as Prime Minister.
Bill English will likely announce his new cabinet later this week, but definitely before Christmas. That gives new ministers time to get to grips with their portfolio so the government can be ready to go as the country heads into election year. As for whether an early election is on the cards, the new Prime Minister says he'll deal with that question in the new year. Atu i te whare pārimata mō te hōtaka o te ahiahi, ko Chris Bramwell ahau.
So who is Bill English? Well, we know his biography. From a Southland farming family, he boarded at St Pat's in Silverstream, Wellington, became head boy, did a BCom at Otago, then honours in English at Vic, worked as a treasury analyst, married Dr Mary Scanlon, now Dr Mary English. The couple have 6 children, Luke, Thomas, Maria, Rory, Bart and Xavier. He became an MP in 1990 and Prime Minister, of course, this afternoon. They are the details of his private life, but what does he want to achieve now that he is the country's Prime Minister? Of course, he hasn't named a cabinet yet, and we already know he's less singularly committed to a superannuation age of 65 than John Key was, that he'll consider meeting the Pike River families, to listen, and that tax cuts aren't inevitable, but on a list of things being considered. But what's his broader goal? Re-election, obviously, but as he stood and watched John Key being applauded from Parliament this afternoon, what did he hope to have achieved when he leaves the job of Prime Minister?
Look, I think to build on what was behind the warmth of that applause, and that is the confidence and optimism that John Key had, that I think he uniquely brought to political leadership, but from which New Zealand has benefited. I mean, I've seen New Zealand go through some very difficult times back in the mid to late 80s, but again in the mid-2000s with recession, and we've just become a more resilient, confident country. So we want to maintain that, build on it, but also take these positive choices we now have, because we've got a strong economy, we've got budget surpluses, we've got, I think, a broad public desire to see the economy grow, but see the benefits of it shared.
Let's use that phrase, positive choices, because my experience of you is that you don't say things accidentally. And so, Are you widening the paradigm of those choices? What it seemed before is that there was a fairly narrow range. Are you saying that there are more things we can do and that they might be about spreading the benefits wider?
Well, look, I would hope so. And that's not just about money, of course, although lifting people's incomes should be an objective of every government and certainly an objective of this government. It also involves the government, which plays such a big role in our community, doing its job better so that more people who have aspirations can see those aspirations realised. As I said when I made my comments today, whether that's a family facing up to the violence in their household or someone who's been long-term on a benefit having the courage to step into work, we can do a better job of realising those aspirations as well as growing businesses, growing GDP.
How?
Oh, I think understanding them much better. The government system has been in the past a bit driven by the services it wants to supply. Like everything else these days, with technology, you can reach individuals. You can reach individual families and understand their needs better and work with them rather than hand them the service we like giving out, because frankly, some of that hasn't worked, particularly for our most disadvantaged 5 or 10% of the population.
Mm. And that's an intractable problem, isn't it? Are you satisfied with this government's response to it so far? I mean, you seem to be saying, and I know it's a precarious balancing act because nothing about you wants to implicitly or explicitly imply that you don't think that John Key was a fantastic Prime Minister. But you seem to be saying there is room to get deeper into their lives, to help more, to lift more, to try harder.
Look, it's a bit evolving from where we are. So it's there is no criticism of John Key's administration. In fact, he's allowed a breadth of thinking which hasn't always been there in the National Party, and we've now, by being in government, been able to develop a set of tools and approach. We call it social investment. But it means a lot of things, as we've discussed.
What does it mean? What does it mean? If somebody's listening, if somebody's sitting in their car in the traffic, going home, listening to you say that, what does that phrase mean?
Oh, it means understanding what happens to the people who need government support across their life course, and applying resources and support now so we can change those lives rather than just let them drift on. But bear in mind, that's got to be always in the context of opportunity. So whatever toolkit the government brings to supporting people, they need to have the opportunities in the economy. So alongside all this, we've got to continue to build the infrastructure for a growing economy and a growing population, ensuring there's the jobs and opportunities there for people who otherwise might not have had them.
Yes, but we now also have people with work who are struggling. So getting a job alone now is not enough. And I wonder if, in a way, that's a more difficult problem for a government to directly deal with.
Look, it's difficult to address quickly, but it can be addressed.
How?
A fair bit of what's happened to household incomes has been related to the way our housing market and housing cycle has worked. When you look around the world, there are choices about how to regulate our housing, and they're not always easy choices. You've seen, controversy in Auckland, just in Wellington this week, where communities are concerned about whether more houses at reasonable cost are going to somehow change their community. And those are legitimate arguments, but in the long run, we do need more houses at lower costs, and we need a set of rules for our housing market through our councils, a set of council rules that enable the kind of growth New Zealand's now experiencing.
So we need more houses that people on low incomes can afford to live in, but the government is reducing the number of houses you own.
But we're increasing the number of social houses because other people are owning them. The general point here is simply not that we're going to be rewriting all the policy straight away, but that we can see the pressure that's arisen in our households around the housing market. Some people have had their wealth improved. A lot of people have had their cost of housing go up, And while you can't get answers quickly, over time we can improve that for all New Zealanders.
I spoke to the Salvation Army on Friday and I said, what do you want from Bill English? And they said that they want exactly the stuff you're talking about, particularly around households with low income. You know, the notion that they have been excluded from meaningful participation in New Zealand life, in the kinds of ordinary expectations and dreams that you and I grew up with. And they also said that you are, they hope, a compassionate conservative. Do you know what they mean by that? And if so, are you?
Well, I've spent a lot of time with the Salvation Army. Major Roberts was involved in rethinking our housing policy. So if they mean paying attention to the people that they look after, then the answer is yes. And often what they want from us is government to focus its enormous resource more smartly and effectively, so we can do a better job. The Salvation Army do a fantastic job on very limited resource. We can do better with the large resource we have through all the taxes people pay.
I guess I'm trying to work out if you are something new or more of the same, and you only got the job this afternoon. It feels a little bit like you're playing your cards close to your chest. Are you?
Look, circumstances have unfolded in such an unpredictable way that I don't think anyone could have quite planned a card-holding strategy. I just know that I've been presented with a magnificent opportunity, both by a very successful previous Prime Minister and now a caucus that's a group of national MPs who are looking for continued success for New Zealand and, of course, continued political success through an election, and they've shown some confidence in me. And so I'm, willing to lead on things that I think matter.
Yes, and I know you've got to go, and we're really grateful for your time, but you talked about continuation. You used the word continued twice, and then you said things I think matter, and they're not the same thing, are they? I mean, if you were merely going to continue, well, you'd ask John Key to stay. And so I guess to end with, what is it that you will do that will be different?
Well, look, I've laid out what I'll focus on in the comments I've made today. And look, I think, John, the public will decide whether or how it's different. Frankly, I don't think it'll matter that much. It won't matter as much as whether what the government is doing works for them. I think they know that what the government led by John Key worked for them, and the test is there out ahead of us. I'm not really setting out to prove something's different. We're setting out to be an effective government that's going to build on the positive confidence that there is in New Zealand.
Bill English will have more on this extraordinary day in politics later, and we will have more on specific policy platforms when he names his cabinet. To other news now, 2 men are dead and 40,000 people without power in the Gisborne district after a light plane crashed this morning. The agricultural aircraft hit power lines just after 9 o'clock in harsh terrain northeast of Wairoa. Here's Tim Graham.
The Civil Aviation Authority says its initial intelligence indicates the aircraft hit the power lines and then crashed to the ground 2.5 kilometres further on. The aircraft is described as burnt out as a result of the accident. Eastland Group is the lines company for the region. Its chief executive, Matt Todd, says the power blackout is far-reaching.
The outage is affecting the whole of the Gisborne district. That's 20,000 electricity connections, so total number of people, probably about 40,000 people. We are able to use our diesel generators and supply some people some of the time in the area north of Gisborne, up the east coast, but that supply is intermittent.
Matt Todd says the damage inflicted on 4 power cables at the crash site is also significant.
4 of them to be physically broken. We're talking about an 800-metre span, so from one tower to the next tower, nearly a kilometre. It would appear the aircraft's kind of hit the line in mid-span, broken 4 of the 6 conductors and damaged the other 2. So power's gone out instantly.
It could be late tomorrow before power is returned to the region. The Civil Defence Controller for Gisborne, Patrick Willock, is telling people not to panic.
Went to one service station and I couldn't get over the queues lined up. It just was madness. By tomorrow night, hopefully things will be up running again. So if you don't need fuel, don't go.
The Gisborne Mayor, Meng Foon, says the power cut is causing major disruption.
There's a whole lot of inconveniences, people on dialysis machines, people on ventilators, cell phones. They're not going to charge up unless you're going to turn on your car to charge them up. So there's a whole lot of causes and effects. But our main thing is the life support stuff, water, sewage and food.
The backup generators are running at Gisborne Hospital. Its chief executive, Jim Green, says the generators have the capacity to go for 5 days.
We're phoning around our contacts at rest homes to see their arrangements, their emergency planning is in place, contacting general practices, doing the same to see how they're getting on in terms of being able to provide care for people.
The police say work is underway to retrieve the victims' bodies and formally identify them. Investigators from the Civil Aviation Authority will be taken to the crash scene tomorrow morning and will be lowered down by a winch to access the site. For Checkpoint, Tim Graham.
5:25, a Dunedin Council inquiry into nearly 3,000 failing power lines has recommended major changes to the lines company involved. 3 investigations were launched after a whistleblower revealed the council companies Aurora and Delta have several thousand poles in Dunedin and Central Otago which urgently need to be replaced because of the risk they could fall over. The council's holding company commissioned Deloitte to find out who knew the scale of the problem and test the management. Our reporter Ian Telfer has just come out of a media conference about the inquiry and joins us now live from Dunedin. Hi Ian, so the whistleblower, Richard Healy, was right.
So it seems, John. He accused the management of not understanding the scale of the problem, of not seeing just how dangerous it was for their workers and for the public. And today, Deloitte, after a month-long review, has found that there are serious systematic problems across the network. They didn't come out and say as much. The whistleblower was right, but they did say that there were problems, with the performance of the network. There was problems with the way that the company was dealing with it, and in fact, there was problems. They said a conflict in the way that the company's been structured itself. So they're saying Aurora and Delta, one of them the lines company, and one of them the line maintenance company, if you like, should have been separated from the start. They should never have been working together, and that has led to a conflict of interest, which needs to now be solved. So they've also recommended a whole range of radical changes.
Yeah, this is an extraordinary state of affairs. Up to 3,000 failing power poles. What are the companies saying in response to this?
Well, of course, the company's already announced that it's going to fast-track the upgrade of these by the end of next year. Originally, it was thinking maybe 4 or 5 years. Now it will do it by the end of 2017. But today, after this report was released, the chair of that company, Delta Aurora, he resigned, Ian Parton. He wasn't there. There was a new chair, and the new chair was from Deloitte, the very company that had just done the review. There was also the mayor, and there was the chair of Dunedin Holdings, which is the company that owns the companies, if you like, or the council. He was saying there was a problem, but he wasn't going as far as to say that the CEO would have to go as well. At this stage, just the chair.
Ian, what changes are going to be made? I think.
Yes, well, it could be a whole range. Deloitte says serious structural problems that it needs to be fixed. The splitting of the 2 companies, new board indeed, but also instead of looking 10 years ahead for its repair and maintenance of power poles, it's now going to need to look, it says, on a 30-year horizon. So it needs to think again about how it's even paying for this and also how it's fixing them. And of course, it's going to have to now fix 3,000 poles in a year, which it hasn't managed to do more than about 300 in any of the previous years. So it's got a very big job on its hands.
Ian Telfer live with that breaking news out of Dunedin. Thank you so much. It's 5:28, which means we haven't got time for our Pike River interviews before the 5:30 headlines. So we're just going to squeeze this in quickly and then come back to Pike River. Joseph Parker, not only heavyweight champion following his victory on Saturday night, of course, he's also son to 2 incredibly proud parents. His mother, Sal, is hoping to get the 24-year-old home to Samoa for a traditional Christmas with the family. She told our reporter, Zach Fleming, this afternoon she was delighted her son had finally achieved a dream he'd had since he was 6 years old.
Sala, can I take you back to Saturday night and you're there and you've just seen Joe has won? How did it feel? What went through your mind?
It was such a relief, because it was like, it was a heavy load leading up to the fight, to both us and the family. We lost a lot of sleeps, lots of late nights, appetite as well. So it was a whole collective of things that we experienced leading up to the fight.
Has that relief moved over into happiness now?
Happiness, not only both of us, but the whole family, and especially those who travelled far to witness and to be part of this historical sport in the country.
I can see you having a few glasses of wine and a couple of beers here still celebrating. Is it sunk in yet?
Grape juice would do for me because I don't drink. Because if I drink, then they will miss out.
What have you been doing to celebrate?
Oh, nothing so far. We just relax as a family, happy together. Joseph's got time to visit his baby girl and families, but we're looking at having a family sit down together tonight and plan what to do for Christmas and for the rest of his holiday for the next 2 months.
Are you happy he's taking that time off? He can come back to the family?
Oh, absolutely. We haven't had Christmas together for a long time, but this is our time to celebrate and to have time together with him. That's the main, happiness for us, is to have our complete family.
Are you going to try and get him back to Samoa for Christmas?
That's another part of the plan tonight. We'll see where Joseph's mindset is and where he wanted to be for Christmas. And we'll all find out tonight.
So your other son is also a very promising up-and-coming boxer. You must be able to take a bit of credit for their success, surely?
They were both doing really, really well on Saturday, and that's the highlight. They camped separately. One was in Christchurch with Kevin Barry's brother, Brian, and family. They were looking after him very well. He was very happy throughout the whole camp. And Joseph was in Vegas, so it's two different camps altogether. But when they came on Saturday, they did really, really well. And we can't ask for any more than that.
Can I say just finally, what did you say to him when you first saw him after the fight in the changing room? What was your first words to him?
Congratulations, and thank you for the wonderful performance. Because that was a challenge I gave him. He said, "Oh, Mum, why don't you come in the ring to celebrate with us when I get, the victory?" I said, "Joseph, the only time I can get into the ring is when you have that world title around you." So that was a challenge to him. And he said, "Mum, I can promise you I will get you in the ring one day." And so that one day was Saturday. So we were all happy and celebrated with him in the ring. So it was a very exciting experience, very happy moments, and we're happy that, his ultimate goal is finally achieved on Saturday. And but we're so grateful for the support, not only from New Zealand, Samoa, Australia, and all around the world, for helping Joseph to achieve this ultimate goal of his.
That's Zach Fleming talking to Joseph Parker's very proud mum, Sala, with Dad Dempsey listening on. You're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Thank you for being with us. Coming up, Pike River families gifted control of the road to the mine. Quite an extraordinary state of affairs. We talk to one of the families, we speak to the farmer who has given them the opportunity to send solid energy away. The Transport Agency hopes it can open State Highway 1 between Kokoda and Christchurch before Christmas. That is big news, of course. And, well, we'd love to hear from you in any way you choose. Text us 2101. What do you think Bill English is going to do? You can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. We're on Facebook, of course, and you can email checkpoint@radionz.co.nz. Nona is coming up with business, but first, Katrina with headlines.
Bill English has been officially appointed Prime Minister. The short ceremony at Government House appointing Mr English and his deputy, Paula Bennett, took place this afternoon after John Key formally resigned. Mr English says he wants to be a positive Prime Minister for New Zealand and acknowledges he's very different to his predecessor in that he is a social conservative. Meanwhile, Bill English says he could consider meeting some of the Pike River families. As of last night, the families have been blocking Solid Energy's access to the site in a bid to stop the government-owned company from permanently sealing the mine before it can be checked for remains and evidence. Work is underway to retrieve and identify the bodies of 2 men killed when a light plane crashed near Wairoa this morning. The agricultural plane was owned by Farmers Air. About 40,000 people in the area have been without power, though some will be able to cook tea for a limited time this evening after Civil Defence brought in generators to plug into some substations. A Dunedin Council inquiry into thousands of failing power poles has recommended major changes to the lines companies involved. 3 investigations were launched in October after a whistleblower revealed the council companies Aurora and Delta have almost 3,000 poles in Dunedin and Central Otago which need urgent replacement. The head of the Havelock North Water Inquiry has scolded the Hawke's Bay Regional Council for withholding key information from it. Under cross-examination, the Regional Council's Resource Management Group manager, Ian Maxwell, revealed a possible link between a local river and the Havelock North aquifer. That is the headlines. I'll be back at 6.
Thanks, Katrina. Let's turn to business news. Hi, Nona. Welcome back. Fonterra Fund's annual shareholders meeting held this afternoon. You went along. What happened?
Well, it was a meeting of the investors who invest in Fonterra rather than the farmers. So, our listeners may know that the cooperative has farmer shareholders who met last week and investors who met this week. And, so there was a few questions. It was pretty straightforward kind of meeting. The chair of the Fonterra, John Wilson, didn't want to, speculate on forecasting and so on. But hey, he was open to talking a bit about our new Prime Minister and what did he think that was going to do in terms of our trade and so forth. Of course, global dairy trade is impacted quite a lot by geopolitical events. We talked a bit about Donald Trump. We talked about what's happening with China. We talked a bit about Brexit. And so, he had a few things to say. He said he's critically important, stable, steady hands, and maybe we have a little bit from the meeting today.
Very steady as she goes. I mean, clearly our Bill English as Deputy Prime Minister and holding the finance portfolio has had such a strong contribution over the last few years in the so-called John Key government. So I personally think it's a very good move, and that stability is very, very important to New Zealand in a global context. Remember, no one owes us a living globally, and how we present ourselves globally and our own strength here in New Zealand economically is very important to us.
And that's the chair of Fonterra, John Wilson.
What happened to the markets today, Anna?
All right. Well, the top 50 index, it fell 0.25% by 17 points to 6,876. And our dollar is trading at 71.4 US cents, 95.8 Australian, 56.7 pence, which is pretty strong considering the US Federal Reserve this week is expected to finally hike interest rates.
Right, so the dollar didn't do much at all today,
Not really. It's held steady the whole way. And oil prices, though, moved quite a lot today. They moved 5% in the futures, which is extraordinary. Yes. And I think that will be a story in the coming days, what's going on with oil and what happens with the US Federal Reserve.
Auckland Business Reporter Nona Pelcio. Thanks, Nona. Bill English has today said he will consider meeting representatives of the Pike River families to listen to what they have to say. Checkpoint believes that meeting will happen, but it's highly unlikely to be tomorrow when family representatives are in Wellington. This morning the families were on the road to the mine again, but this time in control of it after the farmer who owns the land the road is on gifted legal control of it to the families. That meant the families could lock solid energy out rather than the other way around. More on that in a moment. But for Cheryl Griffin, whose daughter Chloe was married to 33-year-old mine victim Kane Napier, this meant the morning was sad, as they always are, but also today somehow different.
I felt the same. I felt sick, but it was just a wee bit different. And in my mind thinking, is this really happening? Because, we've been told so many times that things are going to change. And we always get kicked in the guts, but this time, I don't know, it was just like, what, is it for real, and it was quite eerie going up there still,
Cheryl, when you say get kicked in the guts, can you explain that to people listening who don't understand what that kick in the guts is? How does it come? Who's it from? What does it feel like?
It's just like the whole time we've listened to everybody that we thought we're supposed to listen to, and we've done what everyone's told us to do. But every time that we go in to a meeting, and then we're thinking, God, what's going to happen? And then the next thing it's no, or something else has happened, and it's just like I don't know, you just feel like you're just going round and round, and everyone's telling us what to do, and, you know, it's our guys in there, and everyone's telling us what we should do, and, like, you know, I don't know, we listen to too many people, and, you know, we should have done this when we had that meeting at the Ashley Motor, and we should have turned around and fought back then.
What meeting was that?
The one at the Ashley Motor, and the last one we were told when that, I don't even know what her name was, I think she's the CEO of Solid Energy, you know, turned around and said, well, it's not going to happen. You know, we should have stood up then and started doing all what these guys have been doing now. You know, it's just like we would just keep listening to everybody to say, we'll do this and do that right. And, but finally, hopefully, this is going to be a turnaround for us all, you know, and maybe, like, there is going to be a bit of a relief in our life because it's bloody hard, yeah.
It's 6 years now, and you still sound...
Oh, so angry. Angry. I lie in bed every night and worry about my daughter and my grandson. You know, like, they're in a house on their own, and, you know, people think you can move on, but no one knows what these families and the children, you know, I think of the children because I'm a grandmother, but the children, like, the families have had problems and no one knows about it. You know, there's lots and lots of things that I know that other families have gone through with their children. Like, it's heartbreaking. And, you know, we lay the thunder and lightning and bad weather. You know, she's out there by herself. You know, no one knows what we go through. And it's us as well, you know, looking after our daughter and my grandson.
What do you want, Cheryl? What?
I want bloody justice. I want to get in that mine as far as we can go down. And if there isn't anybody's in there, it's still it is evidence, and they just can't close that mine. They can't close it up because we're going to keep going on and on like this. You know, it's driving us crazy. I'll never ever sleep properly until I know that we have done everything we can, to try our darndest to get evidence, justice, and hopefully there is some guys down there that we can get to bring home to make some family happy that they've got their loved ones home and just a bit of relief.
And for people listening who will absolutely empathise and sympathise with you, but will also be saying, but we keep being told again and again and again, it is not safe to go up that drift.
It's a load of bullshit. We've got guys there waiting to go in, and, like, you know, these guys are specialists in New Zealand, you know, and it's just bullshit. That's all I can say. You know we can get in there. Time and time, these guys keep coming and telling Bernie and us, all our families, that it can be done. We know it can be done. You know, yeah.
Cheryl Griffin, who was on the road this morning with other families. A road they were controlling because Blackpool farmer Colin van der Geest gifted legal control of the road to the mine, to the families, meaning they could turn Solid Energy away. I spoke to him earlier this afternoon and asked Colin van der Geest why he did it.
The opportunity was there to sort of help the families out, and that piece of land was sitting there, and they sort of had no rights to do much more than wave at people going past as it was. And to be honest, like, we've known, I guess, the monks and a lot of the families for years, and it was an opportunity to help. So that's what we did, yeah.
And did you just call them up and say, did you call Bernie or someone up and say, hey, this is my land, and I'm effectively going to give it to you guys?
Bernie obviously found out and approached us, and you know, and we were happy to help out, you know. So it was, for us it was a bit of a. I guess we thought about it long and hard, and just as a family, and thought, well, this is the right thing to do. It's the last chance for them to do something, and hopefully the timing has worked out perfectly. You know, politically, I guess, around the country at the moment with the changes at the top, that they can get some leverage out of it. So that's where we got to with it. And if it wasn't now, when would it be? It wouldn't happen, would it? So.
Bernie's boy Michael, he worked on your house, didn't he? As an apprentice, as a young builder.
That's right. Yeah. So Michael was, you know, up here for however many months it took, but it's that close connection of a small community, you know, John.
Yeah, I do. Very small community. Have you heard from Solid Energy?
Not yet, but I guess we will at some point in time. They'll be looking for, you know, avenues to proceed, and yeah, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
But it's your land.
Definitely. Yep. It's on the. When you look at it on the map, you can see very clearly, you know, where the lines run and where the roads run. So yeah.
How were the families this morning? Did you go and see them? Did you go and say hello when they were all standing at the gate they've put up?
Unfortunately, John, someone had to milk the cows, and that was my job.
I sense this was a big thing for you, because my guess is you don't really like the limelight. You don't really want to be on the radio and the telly and all that stuff.
No, I'd prefer to, you know, yeah. And we have, you know, like we've just sort of stayed out of it and let things progress as they did, I guess, and have. But, you know, as I said earlier, it's, you know, when this opportunity presented itself, it was like, well, you know, we live in this town with these people, and we know them, and how could you not do something if you have the opportunity, I guess. So, yeah, that's you know, and that's what where we come to with it. And it was it wasn't an easy decision to make, that's for sure. But it's one we feel pretty comfortable with, and certainly have had a lot of support for it. So, which is great, and you know, happy to do our wee bit.
Colin van der Geest, who owns the land that road is on, turned control of it to the Pike River families, who are now therefore able to turn Solid Energy away. What does Solid Energy say about this? Well, as usual, as they do every single time we ask them for an interview, they declined to appear on Checkpoint. In fact, today we don't even think they bothered to reply to our request. We would love to talk to them. Let's cross the Southern Alps. The Transport Agency is hoping it can reopen State Highway 1 between Kaikoura and Christchurch before Christmas. The route has been closed since the Kaikoura earthquake last month, and road teams are working their way through 29 significant slips along the highway. Today, NZTA took a group of media along, and our reporter Rachel Graham spoke to Regional Performance Manager Peter Connors about how tricky this work is to do.
You've seen with the abseilers where we're by power lines, and you know that's simply because you can't sluice by those power lines, so they're hand picking their, you know. So the trick of all this is to make the slopes as safe as possible. Just not clearing the debris away. It's all about making these slopes stable, so when we do open it, you have some certainty about the opening. So that's the trick, and it's. A lot of it's weather dependent. It's also the aftershocks have an effect. But you know, when we do open it, the last thing we want to do is have it so we haven't stabilised the slopes and it's unreliable. So we want to make sure that when we do finally get this open, we've got some confidence about the slope stability around us.
And sorry, but time frame, you're hoping what then?
We're hoping the end of this week or early next week for this section of road to Kaikoura.
Okay, so yeah. Potentially there'd be a one-way route.
As you say, in places it's one lane, but a lot of it is two lanes.
Oh.
So it's not all one lane, but there will be places that it will be single lane.
Okay,
yeah.
But within, so you're saying that there potentially could be a through route on State Highway 1 from Christchurch to Kaikoura within a week or two?
That's right. That's exactly
great.
Right.
That will be some real positive news.
Positive news for Kaikoura, obviously, and it's it just takes some pressure off the Route 70 into which is probably, we've got bigger problems in there in terms of stability than what we've got here.
That's NZTA's Peter Connors talking to Rachel Graham earlier this afternoon. The strained relationship between the Hastings District and regional councils, Hawke's Bay. This is thoroughly confusing, but Peter Fowler will address it. Marred the start of the inquiry into the contamination of Havelock North's water supply today. The Hawke's Bay Regional Council has laid charges against the District Council in connection with the Campylobacter outbreak in August, when 5,000 people fell ill. The inquiry heard that the District Council asked the Regional one to drop the legal action, but it declined to do so. What's going on? Well, our reporter Peter Fowler was there, and I asked him first how the day unfolded.
today they've been talking about the safety of the Havelock North water supply. You'll remember that because of the court action that the Hawke's Bay Regional Council is taking against the Hastings District Council, the whole inquiry has been delayed until sort of late January. But today there's an issue, ongoing issue in Hastings District with the water supply. Essentially, because they had to turn those 3 bores off in Havelock North, they've been pumping water from Hastings into Havelock North. But with the summer season coming up here, the demand is very high, but the pumping capacity is not enough to basically feed Havelock North at the peak season. So what they're looking at doing now is reactivating one of the bores in Havelock North. And the inquiry today is looking at the safety of doing that and the sort of processes of doing that.
And if that doesn't happen, there's not going to be enough water in Havelock North over summer.
Well, certainly there's going to be major problems. I mean, they're already being told today that they should be conserving water and not sprinkling their lawns and those sorts of things. So, yes, it is a very serious situation.
Yeah, it is. And does the tension between the Hastings District Council and the Hawke's Bay Regional Council help to explain some of this? I mean, it's almost pistols at dawn between these two councils, isn't it, Peter?
Well, yeah, it's a bit like a Mexican standoff. I mean, you had the head of the inquiry, Lynn Stevens, QC, who is taking he's keeping a very stern ship going here, saying that, we should have the councils all working together. And indeed, the Hawke's Bay District Health Board formed a working group last week trying to encourage all the councils to work together. But what's become apparent today is that the Hastings District Council, which is having the court action taken against it, is a bit paranoid about sort of working with the Regional Council on this working group and other things, because it's worried that the Regional Council is going to use whatever they come up with as evidence against them in the court case. And indeed, it came out that the District Council asked the Regional Council to drop the court action in the interest of trying to work together and resolve this whole water issue in Hawke's Bay. But the Hawke's Bay Regional Council turned around and said, nah, we're not going to drop our court action. So, yes, John, we've got this sort of Mexican standoff where they're sort of a bit worried about working with each other because they might incriminate each other and end up in court.
Yeah, forgive me, but it sounds vaguely farcical to me. In the meantime, of course, the people in Havelock North want to turn on their taps and get water out of them, and they don't want it to be water that makes them sick. So, where next?
Well, I think what they're talking about today is going through the processes of how to make that water safe. And I think there's going to be a number of different sort of things applied. So it will be chlorinated, that bore, when they reactivate it. They're also going to put a UV treatment plant in to basically treat the water to get all the bugs out of it. So they've got a sort of multi-layered approach. And today they're just going through that to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and that this is all going to be basically not going to make Havelock North people sick again when they turn those pumps back on.
That's RNZ's regional Hawke's Bay reporter Peter Fowler. Donald Trump is rejecting a reported CIA assessment that Russia interfered to help him win the US presidency as, and I quote, ridiculous. In a wide-ranging television interview, Mr. Trump also defended his phone call with the president of Taiwan that put China offside, saying he has no obligation whatsoever to abide by the One China policy and won't be dictated to by Beijing. And he's hinted that he plans to spend 2 terms in office. Goodness. The ABC's Zoe Daniel reports from Washington.
It was a report in the Washington Post that said a CIA assessment of election email hacking had found that Russia had given Democratic Party emails to WikiLeaks to try to influence the election outcome. The president-elect has dismissed the very idea.
I think it's ridiculous. I think it's just another excuse. I don't believe it.
President Barack Obama has ordered an inquiry into email hacking, and a bipartisan group of senators has called for an inquiry into this specific case. But in an interview with Fox News, Mr. Trump said the idea of Russian involvement in the election is only being pushed by the Democrats because they lost.
I think the Democrats are putting it out because they suffered one of the greatest defeats in the history of politics in this country. And frankly, I think they're putting it out, and it's ridiculous. We ought to get back to making America great again, which is what we're going to do. And we've already started the process.
In the same interview, he avoided naming his new Secretary of State, despite close questioning about ExxonMobil chief Rex Tillerson. Mr Tillerson has spent much of his career securing oil deals with Russia and is said to have a close relationship with Vladimir Putin.
To me, a great advantage is he knows many of the players, and he knows them well. He does massive deals in Russia. He does massive deals for the company, not for himself, for the company.
He's the Secretary of State.
No, but I have tremendous respect for him. He's a world-class player.
I'm trying to get you to say
But I have others. I know you are. And you're doing very well. But I have others also that I think, Bob Corker is a fantastic guy. Mitt Romney, I've really gotten to know him, and I get along with him really well.
And still on foreign policy, he's justified his much publicised phone call of congratulations with the president of Taiwan, which infuriated the Chinese.
I fully understand the one China policy, but I don't know why we have to be bound by a one China policy unless we make a deal with China, having to do with other things, including trade. Look, we're being hurt very badly by China with devaluation, with taxing us heavy at the borders when we don't tax them, with building a massive fortress in the middle of the South China Sea, which they shouldn't be doing. So I don't want China dictating to me.
On a personal note, Mr Trump says he's closely investigating what's legal to see if he can find a role for daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared Kushner in the administration.
5 minutes to 6. Bakers and bricks and mortar hospitality providers say it's unfair that people who sell online are avoiding the huge cost of complying with new food safety regulations. They want the government to crack down on the growing number of businesses selling products on the internet, like cupcakes, for example. Sharon Brett Kelly reports.
At the family-run Baker's Cottage in the Auckland suburb of Kingsland, assistant baker Courtney Fraser has been working since dawn, helping to make Christmas treats, including 300 mince pies.
We do make the gingerbread houses and the Christmas mince tarts. We also make Christmas cakes, and we do like little Christmas cookies, so like the little Christmas trees.
They're working more than 12-hour days in the bakery, and the rush doesn't end on Christmas Eve.
It gets really crazy. New Year's Eve is like one of our busiest days. We always have lines out the door. It's amazing. It's quite amazing.
For many food outlets, something else is adding to their stress this Christmas. They have less than 3 months to comply with tougher food safety rules that are being phased in over 3 years.
With Christmas and New Year, and then we're into January and people are trying to take holidays, it's not really leaving much time to get things done, particularly when things are still in a bit of quite a state of confusion.
That's Kevin Gilbert, the president of the Baking Industry Association. He says it will cost some bakers thousands of dollars and many hours of work to comply with the new rules.
There's checklists to fill in terms of when you get deliveries in, when things go out, when you're making pies, for example, when you're making the pie filling, when you're making the pies, when you're reheating. There are checklists to fill in all the way.
Kevin Gilbert says the new rules will create a uniform standard across the industry, but those who need regulating the most are exempt or fly under the radar.
The onslaught of all the social media sales and things, people making products in their home that they then sell on social media to the public, that's an area of concern which we'd like to make sure that MPI bring everybody under the same control.
Tracy Scott from Hospitality New Zealand says it is not fair that online food vendors can avoid paying huge compliance costs.
A huge bugbear for us, and take an example of Airbnb, where people in the non-commercial accommodation sector, they don't have to pay the taxes and compliance costs that a normal business would have to pay. But at the same time, they're cooking these people breakfast and dinner and serving them beer and wine, and they're not licensed to do so.
She wants the government to look at New York's bylaws, which make it difficult for people to operate in the non-commercial food sector. The Ministry for Primary Industry says it regularly receives complaints about internet food sales. MPI's Manager of Food and Beverage, Sally Johnston, says a compliance team often checks Facebook and other social media, and its monitoring system is robust.
We can't be everywhere. We can't
see everything. So it is a little bit a joint responsibility for those that are purchasing the food and us to collectively keep an eye on how food safety is going in New Zealand.
Sally Johnston says people who make money from online operations like Airbnb do not have to comply with the new rules, but they do have to meet certain regulations. Mō te hotaka o te ahiahi ko Sharon Brett Kelly aho.
Kia ora everyone, if you've just tuned in, thank you for being with us. You're with Checkpoint RNZ, in with the new, out with the old, or is it out with the old and in with another version of the old, or who knows? Bill English takes the reins. We will talk more about this after 6. 2 men were killed and 40,000 people without power in Gisborne after this light plane crash. We talk to Mayor Meng Foon and why people in wheelchairs are stranded in Rotorua after a voluntary wheelchair ambulance service van was stolen over the weekend. We're receiving quite a lot of feedback, and some from a couple in Ponsonby who are talking about Bill English. I haven't got long enough to read it now, but we really appreciate it, and lots of people are saying, hey Bill English, we're not persuaded you are a new broom. We'll talk about that after 6.
RNZ News at 6. Kia ora, good evening. Ko Katrina Batten tēnei. Bill English has been officially appointed Prime Minister. The short ceremony at Government House appointing Mr English and his deputy Paula Bennett took place this afternoon after John Key formally resigned. Mr English was formally voted in as National Party leader this morning by MPs along with the deputy leader Mrs Bennett. Mr English says he wants to be a positive Prime Minister for New Zealand and says he'll probably announce his new cabinet later this week, but definitely before Christmas. He describes himself as an active Catholic and says he's proud of it. Mr English acknowledges he's very different to his predecessor, Mr Key, in that he is a social conservative, but says his faith does not define him. The police are working to retrieve and identify the bodies of 2 men killed when a top-dressing plane crashed near Wairoa this morning. The crash left tens of thousands without power, and Civil Defence is working to help locals. Jacob McSweeney reports.
Civil aviation investigators are on their way from Wellington to comb the site tomorrow and work out what caused the crash. The top-dressing plane was owned by Farmers Air. The 2 men killed are a pilot and his loader. About 40,000 people in the area are without power. Civil Defence has been able to provide electricity to some parts of Gisborne City down to Tolaga Bay by using generators brought in from Tauranga. The generators are being plugged into substations and will be turned on this evening so people can cook their dinner. They will be turned off again at 8 o'clock tonight and switched on at 8 in the morning. This is Jacob McSweeney.
The West Coast farmer who's given some of the Pike River families legal control of the mined road says it was the right thing to do. As of last night, the families of the 29 men killed have been legally able to block Solid Energy's access to the mine. The landowner, Colin van der Geest, has told Checkpoint he's known the families affected for years and it was an opportunity to help them.
We thought about it long and hard and just as a family and thought, well, this is the right thing to do. It's the last chance for them to do something, and hopefully the timing has worked out perfectly politically, I guess, around the country at the moment with the changes at the top, that they can get some leverage out of it.
Colin van der Geest says he's yet to hear from Solid Energy about his decision. The families want the mine checked for remains and evidence before being permanently sealed. A Dunedin Council inquiry into thousands of failing power poles has recommended major changes to the lines companies involved. 3 investigations were launched in October after a whistleblower revealed the council companies Aurora and Delta have almost 3,000 poles in Dunedin and Central Otago that need urgent replacement. The Dunedin City Council's holdings company commissioned the consultants Deloitte to find out who knew the scale of the problem and test the management. Councillors debated its report for more than 2 hours. The report recommends health and safety upgrades and the splitting of Delta and Aurora's board and management. The Mayor, Dave Cull, says the whistleblower, Richard Healy, has been largely vindicated and the poles network is not as safe as it should be. The growth in house prices has eased off, but that's failing to silence critics who say putting a roof over your head is still far too expensive. Property experts think prices will get even dearer. Eric Frickberg reports.
Despite a slowing speed of house price rises, 10 of 12 regions have hit a new record median price. So has the country as a whole, with a record median of $520,000. This is criticised by the former Reserve Bank Governor and political leader Don Brash. He says even a tiny section in Auckland with a tent on it would still be overpriced accommodation. He adds even if prices plateau, it would take decades for comparatively modest wage inflation to catch up. Despite these concerns, the Real Estate Institute and the property analyst CoreLogic expect prices to resume rising due to relatively low interest rates, strong net migration and a shortage of land for sale. This is Eric Frickberg.
It's hoped that State Highway 1 between Kaikoura and Christchurch will reopen before Christmas. The main southern route into Kaikoura has been closed since the major earthquake last month. The Transport Agency's Regional Performance Manager, Peter Connors, says there were 29 slips along the stretch of road and they're currently fixing number 14 just north of Owararo. Mr Connors says the work doesn't involve just removing debris but ensuring the slopes above are stable and won't pose a threat. He says it's still not clear when State Highway 1 north of Kaikoura will reopen. It's 6:05. To sport, and Joseph Parker's promoter Dean Lonergan says the WBO heavyweight champion has his sights set on a big payday with the British champion Anthony Joshua. Parker became the first New Zealand-born heavyweight to win one of the 4 major titles when he defeated Andy Ruiz in a majority decision at the weekend. The 24-year-old is likely to face former champion Tyson Fury's cousin Hughie Fury in March or April next year. And Lonergan says if Parker wins that, a unification bout is on the cards.
Joseph is the youngest of all the heavyweight champions at the moment. There's 2 others, Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. Joshua in particular is a massive star in England and he's making seriously good money over there. So it'd be nice to be able to line Joseph up and maybe unify the title in the next 12 to 14 months.
Duco promoter Dean Lonergan. The Indian cricketers have beaten England by an innings and 36 runs in the 4th test in Mumbai to clinch the series with a match to play. India claimed all 4 of England's remaining wickets in just over half an hour this afternoon to take an unassailable 3-0 lead into the final test in Chennai. In football, soccer football, Chelsea have continued their domination in the English Premier League after recording their 9th straight win with a 1-0 win over West Bromwich Albion to go back to the top of the standings. Manchester United beat Tottenham 1-0 and Liverpool and West Ham drew 2-2. The Williams driver Valtteri Bottas is Mercedes' first choice to replace Nico Rosberg at the Formula One Champions. However, Williams have rejected an initial offer to release Bottas from his 2017 contract. That's the news.
Tonight on Nights, Ali Miri talks about maintaining privacy in the age of big data. I mean, can you enjoy the information cake that is the World Wide Web and keep a bit of it just for yourself? And our native fish geek Stella McQueen discusses the banded kakapo, the one whitebait species thought not to be endangered until it disappeared from great swathes of our waterways. On Nights with me, Brian Crump, after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
Met service weather through to midnight tomorrow in the west from Northland to Whanganui, including the central high country. Isolated showers clearing in the morning and then fine with increasing high cloud. Coromandel Peninsula and Bay of Plenty, isolated showers clearing this evening, then fine. Manawatu to Wellington and Gisborne through to Wairarapa. Showers and strong southerlies spreading north this afternoon with possible thunderstorms and hail. Showers clearing up by early tomorrow, then fine with increasing high cloud. Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, scattered showers with thunderstorms possible, clearing this evening, fine tomorrow with increasing high cloud. Otago and Southland, isolated showers during the afternoons and evenings, high cloud thickening tomorrow. Bulla to Fiordland, fine apart from showers about Bulla until tonight. Rain spreading from the south tomorrow. And the Chatham Islands, a few showers clearing tomorrow afternoon. It's 8:06. No, it's not.
Six
it's
past 8.
It's
What are we still doing here, Katrina? Hey, that's overtime, isn't it?
Yeah, actually. I'll be here all night. It's 6:08 and you're listening to Checkpoint.
Thank you very much. For the first time in 8 years, New Zealand has a new Prime Minister. John Key formally resigned today, handing over the reins to Bill English and his new deputy, Paula Bennett. The National Party caucus voted for the pair this morning, but it was a done deal well before then, of course, after all the contenders had pulled out by the end of the weekend. Our political editor, Jane Patterson, standing by to interpret all of this for us. But Bill English spoke after that caucus meeting with his new deputy at his side.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to announce that the National Party caucus has just elected me as the new leader of the party and Paula Bennett as the deputy leader. I want to thank my colleagues for the trust they've shown in me and for the constructive and civil manner in which they have debated over and chosen a new leadership team. I welcome Paula as the deputy leader. I'm proud to have a smart, accomplished and energetic woman as National's first female Deputy Prime Minister and New Zealand's second only Deputy Prime Minister who's a woman. She brings with her the political experience of winning and holding marginal seats, implementing world-leading welfare reforms, and an inspiring journey from teenage solo mum to Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand. I also want to thank and acknowledge Jonathan Coleman, Judith Collins and Simon Bridges for a contest that focused on the challenges that lie ahead for our country and the kind of government needed to meet those challenges. I'd like to thank the outgoing Prime Minister for his service to this country. His strong and positive leadership has guided New Zealand through recession and natural disaster. Because of his unwavering confidence and optimism, New Zealand is a better, more confident country. I also want to acknowledge and thank my wife Mary and our children, Luke, Thomas, Maria, Rory, Bart and Xavier. We have together seen the best and worst of politics. Their inspiration and support has brought us all here. Can I say how excited I am to be leading a strong team of MPs full of ideas about how we can make New Zealand an even better place to live, to work and to raise a family.
Bill English. His new Deputy Prime Minister, Paula Bennett, said her role was a privilege and one she will take seriously.
Certainly been moments over the last couple of days where my husband and I, who knew me as a teenager, and my parents and family have kind of reflected on sort of where I was and where I am now. There was, a moment when I was a 17-year-old Māori solo mum in Taupo with left school with no qualifications. I didn't have a job and it looked pretty bleak actually, and I reckon it's a credit to this country more that there are opportunities and actually you get a second chance, and if you step up to them and then step in, New Zealanders reward you for that hard work. And it's what drove me to the National Party actually, was that real drive behind it, that you can get ahead, you can really make something of yourself and they'll give you a second chance. So the last couple of days have been pretty reflective, I must say. I think you'll see all of who I am. I love this country and I've got a role to play now with my caucus, and it's a different role. So I think you will see me step up and into that. I see myself very much a support role to the Prime Minister, and that's a huge privilege for me. So I think not necessarily more serious, but I take this job incredibly seriously, as I think I have right throughout my parliamentary career actually.
Paula Bennett arriving. Bill English arriving, John Key departing and addressing media for the final time as Prime Minister.
Can I guess, firstly just congratulate the leadership team. Bill English will be a fine Prime Minister of New Zealand, and Paula Bennett will be, I think, an outstanding Deputy Prime Minister. The last 8 years at the top as Prime Minister of New Zealand have been an incredible experience for me and my family. I've thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to show the leadership that I think New Zealand has required through some very difficult times and some challenging circumstances, to make a contribution to making New Zealand a stronger and better country. Just to all of the New Zealanders that have supported me over the last really 14 years in Parliament, but certainly 10 years as leader of the National Party, I just want to express my real gratitude and thanks to them.
John Key then left Parliament for the last time as Prime Minister, accompanied by his wife, Brona. MPs and political staffers gathered on the steps to farewell him. The Prime Minister stopping to speak with the new Deputy Prime Minister, Paula Bennett, Jamie Lee Ross, Chris Finlayson, Judith Collins, Jonathan Coleman and Nikki Kay. He then paused briefly at the bottom of the stairs for one final photo opportunity before leaving for Government House to formally resign. What an extraordinary day. Jane Patterson, our political editor, is joining us now. Jane, are you there?
I am, John. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good. We were looking at you in lots of those shots. It's been a very busy day and a fascinating day. And I think people are trying to take stock of what Bill English means, what the difference will be. And he inevitably and appropriately, I guess, is being reasonably inscrutable because he hasn't even named his cabinet yet. And yet there are hints about trying to include some of the people who have been excluded, trying to address the fact that people, even with jobs now, are seriously struggling to get by in Auckland, for example. What's your sense on how Bill English will be different?
Look, he made quite a point today of talking about that social investment approach that he's been championing as Finance Minister all the way through. Interesting too, I thought he said that he wanted to work with trade unions, iwi, churches, community groups to make sure that the government's actually delivering help to where it's needed. So that was quite a main emphasis on his speech today when he was addressing reporters after he came out of that caucus meeting. I think the other difference just in terms of style is he is a social conservative, where Key was much more liberal. Bill English certainly has personality, but I think he's probably going to be a little bit more subdued and than John Key was. So it's very early, but I think he's certainly giving indications. He says he's not going to take on a portfolio like Mr. Key had tourism, but he will still be keeping a hand in that social spending and keeping an eye over all of those portfolios that touch on it.
Jane, we're receiving fascinating emails this evening, and I think people are wishing Bill English well, but there is an email, it's too long to read unfortunately, I wish I could, but from a couple in Ponsonby who say, hey, look, we want you to do all the things you say you're going to do, but actually for 8 years you have been Minister of Finance as people have found life more and more difficult. In other words, are we asking the broom to reinvent itself? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and that is an absolutely valid point. Mr. English has had control of the purse strings for 8 years, and while John Key was the Prime Minister, Mr. English has had a lot of influence in that cabinet. So it is really up to him, as we see often in these new prime ministerships or people taking on these roles, they will make statements and then it's up to whether they actually deliver them or not. So whether this is something he's wanted to do more of and hasn't been able to get the buy-in from Mr. Key, whether it's one way of marking himself out from John Key's regime, we're only going to see that through budgets and through policy decisions as he really starts to settle into that job.
A good healthy gust of Wellington wind coming in there, our Jane. One of the ways, I guess.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be fine.
One of the ways, I guess, we'll know, we'll get an early sign of what Bill English's intentions are his cabinet. When do you think we will know who's in it, and are you expecting any major surprises?
Look, there's definitely going to be change. Mr. English and his deputy, Paula Bennett, have both said that they have heeded the call from their backbench that they want to see some new faces in that cabinet lineup. Mr. English said today that he would expect to announce his new cabinet by the end of this week, but he's also giving himself the room to go into next week if possible, because there are potentially some tough discussions and consultations that still have to go on. We're expecting, the backbenchers that are being talked about potentially going up are Mark Mitchell, Todd Muller, Chris Bishop and Alfred Nauru, but of course when you have new people coming in, that means that some of the serving ministers have to go out. Of course, you've got John Key leaving, you've got Hekia Parata signalling her departure next year. So exactly who is going to move aside to make way, that's obviously going to be some tough discussions and decisions for Mr English to make. I really think that he would breach faith with that caucus if he didn't make a significant and visible change to that caucus lineup. To the cabinet lineup, sorry.
Yeah, that's going to be absolutely revealing, isn't it? Jane, just before we go, very quickly, have you gone, Jane? Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Yeah, just before we go, very quickly, you've written this up. Tell us what it's called, your description of the day on the internet so people can find it. What it's on the RNZ website, right?
Yeah, new PM fits the bill. Just looking back at Mr English's first speech and address to the media and some of those issues around the restructure, the reshuffle and some of his policy approaches, and talking a little bit about those religious views and maybe how that might shape his actions as a politician as well.
Thanks, Jane. You can find that on the RNZ website. It's 19 minutes past 6. Let's go to this extraordinary situation in Gisborne. 2 men were killed and 40,000 people remain without power after a light plane crash. It was an agricultural aircraft that hit power lines northeast of Wairoa, which is of course south of Gisborne, just after 9 o'clock this morning. Civil Defence say 6 power lines were brought down in an area that was difficult to access, and repairs are unlikely to start until late tomorrow, I think. Meng Foon is the Mayor of Gisborne. Mayor Foon, it's lovely to have you with us on Checkpoint. I'm sorry it's in these circumstances. What do you know about when your city is getting its power back?
Well, the first thing, John, thanks for your
I think we've lost Meng Foon. Meng Foon, we're going to try and get Meng again, because 40,000 people without power, and no sign yet as to when it will be returned. So we will try again to talk to the Mayor of Gisborne. But let's look at the cost of housing, and of course this is so important. The Real Estate Institute's monthly figures for November show the rate of increase is slowing, but prices are still increasing, and they are very high. Social critics say expensive houses cause real difficulties for many people. Well, that's just a statement of the obvious, isn't it? But housing market analysts expect prices to keep on rising anyway, despite the government working hard, as they keep telling us, to address the supply side. Eric Frickberg reports.
Housing inflation in New Zealand has slipped from overdrive to a still racy fourth gear, with 10 of 12 regions hitting a new record median house price. Across the country, that median is $520,000. That would take a typical family 6.5 years to earn. A pause in Auckland's growth rate slowed this relentless drive slightly, but only because Auckland has already won the race, with many suburbs dominated by $1 million plus homes. The former Reserve Bank governor and political leader Don Brash has long viewed this with horror, and he's not comforted by the latest small-scale throttling back.
In Auckland, you can pay $600,000, $700,000 for tiny sections of 400 square metres, and if you put a tent on a section at that price, it's still unaffordable for the great majority of people.
Dr. Brash says even if house prices were to plateau, it would take decades for relatively tame wage inflation to catch up and restore a proper balance between wages and prices.
Simply plateauing doesn't solve it for most people. House prices already, relative to incomes, are at levels which make it impossible for people on average wages to ever hope to own their own home.
Hugh Pavlich has published a study comparing New Zealand home prices with those in other countries, noting Auckland's prices in real terms are 3 times higher than those in Dallas-Fort Worth, and that city has 4 times the population. And he says it's a huge burden to ordinary people.
It's effectively a massive tax on them, having to pay this hugely excessive price to house themselves just because the Auckland Council is dilatory in releasing land and financing infrastructure properly.
High house prices are often criticised as unsustainable and possibly a bubble ripe for bursting. But a director with the Real Estate Institute, Brian Thompson, doesn't think that'll happen.
If you
you look at historical behaviour in the market, we had a bit of a pause in the market at the same time last year, moving through into Christmas. And then when people came back late January, early February, the market lit up again and became really positive.
Brian Thompson attributes that to relatively low interest rates, strong net migration and a shortage of land for sale. Nick Goodall of the property analyst firm CoreLogic says the recent small hesitation in the market stems from Reserve Bank thresholds for home buyer deposits and higher ones for investors. But he doesn't think this short hesitation will last and says the market will soon resume its upward trajectory.
The fundamentals behind the market are all still very strong. Net migration is still very strong. Interest rates are still very low, although they are starting to tick up. And on the supply side of things, the Auckland Unitary Plan is a slow-moving part of the market.
Nick Goodall says while the Unitary Plan is intended to bring more houses onto the market, this will take some time, meaning a shortage of houses will persist, and that'll keep house prices high. For Checkpoint, Eric Frickberg.
Let's go back to Gisborne. We're hoping we've got them here. Obviously, with power down, there's also issues with cell phone towers and all that kind of stuff. Ming Foon, the Mayor of Gisborne, are you there, Ming?
Yes, John.
Oh, lovely to talk to you. Yeah, good. I'm good. Look, 2 people have been killed, which is absolutely tragic. And your city has 40,000 people without power. When are you expecting the power to be back on?
So our first message is condolences to the family. We're really sorry that this has happened, and the whole community is with them. We hope to actually have the power on by the evening on Tuesday. That's the latest message from the Eastland Network. They're working hard in atrocious weather at the present time because it's hosing down with rain right in the hinterland, and they're working right through the night to try and get the power on for us here in Gisborne.
So atrocious conditions and pretty difficult terrain, right, they are working in. And quite clearly the plane just went straight through the lines, did it?
Well, that's what they said. They cut the lines and hence power's out.
Ming, yeah, look, I'm so sorry. Yeah, look, sorry, Ming. It's a rubbish old line. We will try again. That's Ming Foon, the Mayor of Gisborne. That what Ming was able to tell us is that the power should be on, all things going well, by tomorrow night. 40,000 people without it. The weather, as you heard Mayor Foon say, is abysmal too. So, yeah, bad news on all fronts. When Charlene Wilson went to hop in her mobility van to head to her dialysis appointment on Saturday, it had vanished. The Rotorua voluntary wheelchair ambulance service van was stolen sometime on Friday night or Saturday morning. It means Miss Wilson has to travel in her wheelchair to her dialysis appointments 3 times a week or catch a taxi. And it's also stranded the other wheelchair-bound passengers who use the van. Now, the van has the service's name and phone number written in large letters on both sides, and it is specifically built to carry people in wheelchairs. Someone must know where this is. Ms. Wilson spoke to our producer, Michelle Cook.
I'm the main driver. I'm in a wheelchair myself. And we also have other people around Rotorua who volunteer to drive for us. And they go and pick up other people in wheelchairs who want to go to appointments or get a lift into town or anywhere like that. But it's too expensive to get a taxi or anything like that. It's just something to help people in wheelchairs to have more freedom. We're just lucky that we've got time to ring everyone who's been booked in, especially for Christmas Day. We were quite busily booked for that. You know, people wanting to get out to their families to go and spend Christmas Day and not having to worry about how they were going to get out there.
And now what, they're going to have to catch a taxi, are they?
Yep, they're going to have to try and see if there's a taxi that's free, rebook everything, see if they can even afford it. A taxi's really not cheap. I had to get one on Saturday to get home from my dialysis, and that's virtually half of our grocery money for the week now gone. So I'm just really, I don't know what to say to these people that had nothing better to do with their time than to go walking around a private residential area and to just steal it. I'm just really in shock. We've got to find what's happened to it so we know whether we're going to have to go and fundraise thousands of dollars to get a van to do this all again. So, For some people, you go and look in the freezer and go, oh, you've got no bread this morning. Well, I did that, and then it took me an hour's trip to go and get bread. I couldn't just ring a friend who has a spare car and say, can I borrow your car?
Charlene Wilson talking to our producer Michelle Cook. Now, obviously, someone knows where this van is. For goodness sake, get it returned or contact the police. Just before we go tonight with the time at 6:28, an update on the Pike situation. The families have announced a new mine re-entry plan. They will deliver it at 12:30 tomorrow afternoon to Parliament. They're meeting by the Cenotaph. The plan has been developed by two international mining experts, David Creedy, Vice Chair of the UN Group of Experts on Coal Mine Methane, and Bob Stevenson, former UK Principal Mines Inspector. I've dealt with Bob over the years, and he is one of the people who says he personally would be prepared to go into the drift himself. He believes there is a risk, yes, but it is manageable. The report has been reviewed and endorsed by three separate international mining and mines rescue experts, Bernie Monk, Anna Osborne and Sonia Rockhouse, plus Dean Dunbar, Joseph's dad. Of course, Joseph, 17 years old, will be speaking on behalf of the families tomorrow. That will be at Wellington. Our reporter will be there, of course. We would like to reiterate that we constantly try to get Solid Energy on. Now, Solid Energy have experts who say it's not safe. This is a serious point of disagreement with the family, whose own experts say not only is it safe, we would go up. But Solid Energy disagree, and they say they don't want to put lives at risk. This is material and it is important, but it's almost impossible for us to cover it because Solid Energy simply refused to talk to us. I don't know how many requests we have made, but there have been very many. Every time we cover the story, we go to Solid Energy. They are a branch of the state. And frankly, after all this time, we are beginning to find their silence staggering. Anyway, that is the end of Checkpoint for tonight. Thank you for being with us. We will be back tomorrow at 5.
RNZ News headlines at 6:30. Bill English is now New Zealand's newest Prime Minister, and Paula Bennett the Deputy Prime Minister, after a ceremony at Government House this afternoon. The police are working to retrieve and identify the bodies of two men killed when a top-dressing plane hit power lines and crashed near Wairoa this morning. Generators at substations will provide power to cook tea this evening for some of the tens of thousands of people left without electricity in the region. A 4.7 earthquake rattled the Upper South Island and Lower North Island just over 15 minutes ago. It was 15 kilometres southeast of Seddon and 35 kilometres deep. The Transport Agency hopes to reopen State Highway 1 between Kaikoura and Christchurch for Christmas, before Christmas. The West Coast farmer who's given some of the Pike River families legal control of the mine road says it was the right thing to do. And the growth in house prices has eased off, but that's failing to silence critics who say